Welcome to another exciting show of Inspirational Journeys. Today, I am thrilled to present you my next guest. Reason being is that she is someone very special because she has dedicated her life to helping others. When we are young, we think about becoming a firefighter, a police officer, a doctor, a lawyer. And when a profession meets a vocation, there is another level to it. It becomes something that has a purpose, and so it takes you to another dimension. Well, we have someone here that has dedicated her life to helping people with disability. And I want to bring you her story because her story is not only special, it's educational, but it's also very inspiring. Let's meet Kathleen Tetreault. You can't help but notice Kathleen's stunning smile, energetic spirit, and approachable-like personality. Yet behind the layers of her good looks lies the girl who once dreamed about silencing injustice through the power of knowledge and speech. Meet attorney Kathleen Tetreault, a unique individual with a passion for advocacy through compassion and respect. She's proud to call her disabled Uncle Danny the true motivation for becoming a legal defender. She's dedicated her career to building sustainable legal resources that can positively impact the lives of those with healthcare needs. Kathleen is a trooper. There's so much more to discover from her that we're thrilled to have her as one of our Inspirational Journey stories.
Disability planning exists in 4 different dimensions. We have people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, early onset health conditions like MS, ALS, Parkinson's, individuals who have been catastrophically injured, and then we have individuals who are aging and have healthcare needs based upon their age.
Good evening, Kathleen.
Good
Thank
evening.
you so much for being here with us
you.
at Inspirational Journeys.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, as I said, you are someone that are very inspiring because you've dedicated your young life to helping people with disabilities. Where did that light came from?
So I have an uncle with an intellectual disability, and growing up with him, I started to observe a unique individual who, although he can't speak himself, taught me so many life lessons about what really matters, and that's family, love, a hug, so the true essence of life, really. So growing up with him and having him such an integral part of our family led me to start thinking about other individuals with disabilities, and then as I grew, it started to become something that I was interested in pursuing.
What kind of disability does Uncle Danny have?
He has an intellectual disability. So intellectually, he's probably around the level of a 2-year-old. So he's just laughing, playing, having fun. So he's a great time at birthday parties and Christmas, and you know, it's fun to have that energy and spirit around.
Sure. And when you decided to become a lawyer, did you know from the very start that you wanted to focus on disability?
I did, yes. So I always say my love of disability advocacy preceded my love of the law. So I went to law school with the idea of pursuing some sort of disability advocacy, and they said to us during law school orientation, if you think you know what type of law you want to do, just throw that out the window, because the people that want to be in the back office are typically ending up being these hotshot trial attorneys. So I thought, uh-oh. So after my first year of law school, I pursued an internship with a state agency that advocates for people with disabilities, and thank goodness, I really enjoyed it. And so then I kind of dedicated myself and the rest of my studies to disability, and upon graduating, did special education law, representing parents of kids with disabilities for a little bit before entering into my current planning, which is for individuals of all different types of disabilities and their families and people of all ages.
Okay. Tell us about it. How does the planning start?
So that depends on the type of disability that we're looking at. So within my firm, for example, we have broken conceptually disability into 4 different dimensions. And people might not fit squarely into every one, but we're trying to capture kind of the essence of these different types of disabilities. So the first is individuals like my Uncle Danny with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And for those families, typically planning is going to start early on. It might start from the birth of that child and understanding that there is a disability that is likely going to impact them throughout their life. So in that case, we're looking at planning with the entire family. We're talking about preparing an estate plan in a manner that's going to protect funds for that individual so that they can access benefits. So that's for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Then we plan for people with early onset health conditions like MS, ALS, Parkinson's, and for those individuals, when they have a diagnosis, we encourage them at that point in time to begin planning for accessing some supports and services from the state so that we can get involved early to preserve their private resources while still accessing the care that they need where they need it, and that care can be delivered at home. Then we plan for individuals that have been injured. It could be medical malpractice or catastrophic injury, and those individuals, typically it's when they're working with their trial attorney, they're settling that case, we help to say, let's look at the new normal now with whatever this disability is, and how can we guide you with the benefits that are out there. And then there's the traditional elder law, individuals who are aging, who may, because of their health, now start to decline and need some sort of care, whether at home or in a skilled nursing facility. So for each of those dimensions, the timing of the planning is different, but we always encourage individuals to have a plan. No matter what it is, it's important that everybody knows where they're going and is accessing and learning about the resources that are available to them.
Sure. And I could imagine that the emotional weight that it has when someone comes to your office to look for help. How do you manage the emotional area of the support?
I think everybody is different, but myself personally, it's leading with empathy. And I think that that comes from my Uncle Danny, my own family, and understanding how disability truly impacts individuals, and that every family has some worry that they're bringing to the table, some concern, and a lot of that concern is just a lack of knowledge about what the road ahead looks like. So I approach meeting with a family with listening first and foremost to what their concerns are, and then trying to give them information, because knowledge is power. So the more information that I can impart on a family, and the more that I can connect them not only to different services, but potentially more holistically to other professionals, that's my goal.
What are the major challenges that you come across with?
I think the challenges differ depending upon the client. I think a lot of times it's overcoming misconceptions about planning. So I have, for example, for individuals with intellectual disabilities that are kind of diagnosed early on, families have support groups and they start to talk to one another and they start to say, oh, do you hear about that benefit? Did you get that trust? And so then they start to create their own plans, but they only have half of the picture in place. And so I have individuals that come to me and they say, this is the plan that I need. And I say, why is that the plan you need? And they don't know. It's because that was the right plan for another family.
So you start guiding them in what exactly is that they need as a family.
Right. So sometimes the challenge is telling people what's right for them and helping them to overcome what they conceptualize is right for them based upon what's right for somebody else that they may have heard at the dinner table.
Sure. And what would you say is the most common situation that you come across with? Is it primarily disabilities, intellectual? Is it catastrophic? What has been your experience?
Well, within our firm, I would say that it's a pretty equal smattering among the different dimensions of disability. Myself personally, what I spend the most of my time doing is with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, because that's a practice that is born of my personal passion that I've been connecting with more so, maybe even personally, I would say. So, for example, my dad and I coach a tennis team for the Special Olympics. I'm on a couple of different organizations in the community that have other parents and individuals with people with disabilities. So I feel like I have my finger on the pulse of that realm. But certainly within the practice, we have different, whatever the disability is, we try to guide the individuals.
Nice. And talking about passion, how do you build your own resources as a human being to manage those difficult situations with a family?
I think for me, it's just about genuinely caring. I genuinely want families to have information, to have knowledge, and my hope is that people feel that and that they know that I'm trying to give them information, and whatever choices they make with that information, as long as they're right for them, I just want them to have some sort of roadmap. So the way that I do that personally is just by maintaining a personal connection and making sure that I truly understand what the issues are. So for example, there's a lot of different social media groups out there for families that have loved ones with disabilities, and I follow all of them. And I don't comment on them, I just follow them to see what are people worried about, what are they thinking about, so that I can then bring that to the next client and say, you know, you might be worried about this. And then they say, I really am. So it's nice to feel that I'm educating myself, not from my own experience, but from my knowledge of other people's personal experiences as well.
It's a beautiful mindset that you have, that you pair up with the knowledge that you have as a professional. We've had many guests here on the show that have onset healthcare situations. And it's hard as a person from outside to see that on another human being as their condition progress. What would you say that is your best advice as to where should they start if they are diagnosed all of a sudden with a condition?
I would say that once an individual has the medical knowledge they need, and they have an understanding of where they are medically and feel that that they feel settled with that information, because once you receive maybe any sort of diagnosis, there's some time to process that in and of itself. And when that is processed, then I think it's a good idea to meet with an attorney that practices in the realm of disability planning so that they can guide that individual to say, for example, there's different benefit programs out there that can help to pay for your care, and there's a really good plan that we can implement, but that plan often, because of different waiting lists for programs that will provide care in somebody's home, those programs, because of the waiting lists, give us a little bit of time to say, all right, we've got 2 years or 5 years that we have to plan, so if somebody can come in sooner rather than later upon the progression of some sort of disability or illness, then we have the potential to create a better plan. So I would say, as always, knowledge is power. So when they're ready to start receiving the knowledge and planning, I would say that that's a good idea to contact somebody that can just help to be the navigator through the maze.
Wow. As an expert on the field, what would you say if there are any limitations to the planning process?
Limitations really pertain to time. So, for example, if somebody needs care in the home and they need it now, that's crisis planning, and we can do crisis planning. But that crisis planning is going to have a higher financial cost, and there are things that we could do to avoid those costs if we had time. And I mean, the deficit, the gap truly is knowledge, because people don't know when is the right time to call somebody to help guide me. And typically they're waiting for the tipping point. And the tipping point is when we're in crisis planning. So if people plan ahead and don't wait for the tipping point, then we have time to say, we have 3 options. Here's option 1, 2, and 3. And then the individual is really in control of where they're going. And I think being in control and having a plan, even if the road is leading to the same place, going there with a plan feels better than just getting there day by day.
Have you seen a change from the clients that you used to assist at the very beginning of your practice and now?
What do you mean?
In their mindset, now that we have social media, we have so much information out there. People tend to Google things and find information, you know, not necessarily through the best resources. Do you feel that that has had an influence as to how people overcome or how people approach a planning situation?
Yes, I would say that there are pros and cons to the availability of information, because it's wonderful that information is available, but information without context can be very detrimental, and it can be confusing. And some information is not presented clearly. So individuals will come in and say that they'll have the list of things that they read, and I'll have to spend time to say, that's right, but that's not, and just try to demystify the road. And it's not reflective of the individual themselves. They've done a wonderful job doing the research. It's just reflective of the fact that unless you're in it and you really know and you have the context for things, it's hard to know which way to go. But in the same vein, I found technology to be wonderful, especially for individuals that can find a community. To, like I said, those social media groups, I see families answering each other's questions, giving each other resources.
It's a support system.
Yes. So in that vein, I find it to be a positive development for individuals.
And Kathleen, you're very dedicated. You're very committed just by talking to you, not only in a knowledge standpoint, but your aura as to how do you handle your practice and what is your mindset and your mentality, and you want to help. And it shows.
Oh, thank you.
What has been the most rewarding experience that you've come across?
I would say the most rewarding experience is when I've encountered a situation that you think, I hope this works, and then it does. So for example, I had a client that needed a long-term housing plan. It was a parent really worried about the long-term future for her daughter with a disability, and how is she going to pay for her housing supports. And housing is challenging to come by because there's limited funds available. And through working with different professionals over a period of years, it was 2 or 3 years, we finally landed in a spot where her housing is secure. And because it took so much time and because there were so many uncertain variables and the emotions were high and the stakes couldn't be higher. This is a parent worrying about the future of her 30-year-old young daughter, and we're planning for stability over decades. So fingers crossed that the stability maintains over the decades, but for now, you take the victories where you get them. So it feels really good to say to a family, it's going to be hard, we're going to try, no guarantees, and then to get the result feels really good.
Of course. And
for
how
the
long
family.
did it take, you say, several years?
That one took a couple of years, yes. Because it was, let's try this, that didn't work. Let's try that, that didn't work. And so finally, just at the very right time with a really great budget situation at that day, at that hour.
Sure.
Everyone was in a good mood.
It all helped.
Exactly. The stars aligned, full moon.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Have you experienced really difficult situations?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Many client circumstances in and of themselves are challenging, and the challenge is that we cannot fix a situation that somebody wishes were different. We can't take away a disability. We can't take away an illness. So even if we do our best work, we still can't restore somebody to maybe a position of health that they were previously. Right. So that in itself is challenging. So the best that we can do is connect them to the best new life that we can.
And where do you see yourself in the next couple of years? Do you have any plans, or is there any project that you're working on to even highlight and improve the resources that you are now have available for your customers?
Yes. In particular, I mentioned that victory about housing, and it's because housing is so challenging, and I find that for families with these loved ones with intellectual or developmental disabilities that are going to be lifelong, the concern that I hear most among families and that keeps them up at night is what's going to happen to them when I'm not here. And the biggest component of that is, where are they going to live? And it's more than just who will care for them, it's who will care about them. And because of the lack of resources, families are really limited in their planning options. So my goal is to try to help to work with other families and parent groups that are actively engaged in this issue to create more options for families, to bring people together to develop different creative solutions for housing, combining resources, finding roommates, and to truly do something in our state in particular that's innovative to help fill in that gap.
Do you find that the state and the government agencies work in partnership with you to make that happen, or is more of a roadblock to your success with your families?
I absolutely find, in the way that I would approach any work that I do is collaboratively. I think you make so much more progress when you sit down around a table and say, we're all fighting for the same thing. And it's true, individuals within state agencies want to give you what you're asking for, but they have a lot of red tape and a lot of reasons why they might be saying no. So that doesn't mean that they're not willing to collaborate. And so if I called somebody from the state and said, I have this idea, will you sit down, have coffee with me and talk about it? I can name 5 different people right now that would say yes. So at times it feels like you're at odds with different individuals, but that's because everybody's coming from a different perspective and everybody has different agendas that they have to address throughout the day, but that doesn't mean that everybody's hearts aren't in the same place.
That's a good understanding of what you do every day. And so I know you mentioned that you have, were driven to do what you do because of your Uncle Danny, but have been anyone else that has been a mentor to you throughout your journey? Absolutely.
I have a couple of different individuals. I worked, when I graduated from law school, I worked at the appellate court. I clerked for a judge, and he was a wonderful supporter. And when you leave law school and you work for a judge, everything in you says, don't talk, don't talk, don't talk. So when somebody says, what do you think? And you're a young attorney and you say, you want to know what I have to say? Why? But then over time that starts to build your confidence and you start to think, I do have a lot to contribute. And my current partner, Claudia Englesby, has certainly been a big supporter of mine as I am of hers, and we collaborate every single day. We continue to learn from each other. We are very open that we're both better attorneys because of each other. So it's nice to go to work and have that person there, that we have the shared mission and passion together.
Okay. And within your planning, is there any specific expertise that you focus on or not?
Well, because of my personal experience, really do focus on the intellectual and developmental disability. Estate planning really underlies everything that we do. So we do a lot of work with special needs trusts, and that has to work in conjunction with a family's will. And we talk to families about just their general estate plan in general. And like I said, Claudia and I kind of balance out our practice, so we both have different aspects and dimensions of disability that we're personally connected to, that we kind of go to work for every day, that drives our passion.
Nice. And other than planning, is there anything that throughout your experience you've realized that is important to add to the planning that really, really helps that family sustain a better life situation for the patient?
Yes, I would say that sometimes I tell families, I caveat a lot of what I say. I say this isn't legal advice, but and the things that aren't legal advice are really looking at the individual based on my experience from other clients that might be similarly situated, and seeing what a holistic plan will do. So when I meet with a family, I say, well, what do they like to do? What do they want to do for work? What do they want to do when they graduate? Where do they want to live? And a lot of these questions that I'm asking are questions about quality of life.
Sure.
And then how do we support that quality of life? I can give you a legal plan, but I can't find the job for you. I can't make friends for you. So telling families, these are the things to think about. Think about them early, and here are some resources that you can access to help you to answer these questions. That, to me, is a successful plan for that family.
And how do you set the boundaries?
With clients and families?
Sure.
That's a good question.
Very difficult.
It's a personal relation. It's a personal professional relationship,
Yes.
I would say. So you're talking to clients about things that are very personal to them, and they're trusting you, and they're vulnerable, and it's important that they know that you're there for them. But of course, it has to be in a professional capacity. So we let people know what the resources are available for them, but we don't text.
So you use other platforms.
We email, and we have calls on the telephone from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Well, you have, as I said to you at the very beginning, just by listening to you, you have an aura of yourself that just shows how much you want to help. And if you were going to give an advice to anyone going through a difficult situation, what will that be?
I would say, I would recommend that people surround themselves with people who care and who are competent. I think that you have to have that duality, because certain people can be competent, but the individual might not feel heard or supported, and certain people can care, but they might not be able to put the right plan together. And it's important that people trust how they feel. So I tell people, if you don't feel comfortable with something, then you shouldn't proceed. So as long as people feel that they're supported, that to me is really critical. Their feelings are valid.
Yeah, so you are a trusted guide to your clients.
I hope so.
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
Well, Kathleen, it has been wonderful talking to you. You've
too.
brought to us a lot of good information. I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't think about these things should anything happen. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If anyone wants to know more about the information you can give them, where can they find you?
They can go to our website.
Okay.
We're at www.disabilityplanningpartners.com. They could email me, Kathleen, at disabilityplanningpartners.com, or they could call us, 860-238-0031, if they want to call us.
Well, thank you very much for being here.
You're very
It's been
welcome.
our pleasure. Thank you so much. Well, as you can see, we are surrounded daily with people that really care. And we have to trust that those people that care can help us. So if you want to know more about Kathleen's experience, Kathleen's practice, and you feel that she can be of help to you, you can always write to candson@gmail.com, and we'll definitely put you in contact with her. Well, thank you very much for joining us on another show of Inspirational Journeys.